Okay, welcome back everyone. So the next session that we're gonna have is the 2CG Poetry Machine, a hybrid approach to human capability cultivation with disruptive artistic impulses. And it's gonna be presented by Christina Merle, PhD, Poetry and Business, Vienna, Austria. Christina, feel free to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I'm happy to join you from Vienna today, and I'd like to give you an overview of my presentation first. So I'm going to set the scene first and then talk a little bit about human capabilities and why we need to train 21st century skills. And then I'll be happy to introduce the 2CG Poetry Machine and give you some practice examples. So the presentation will be focused very much on practice examples. And I'd like to get started with a question. I'd like to know, what does this woman in the painting tell you? And I'm sure that if you could answer me now, you'd come up with a lot of different answers, everyone. And I used this artistic impulse in the framework of a team building for a family-owned business. And the intention was to trigger emotions, to find out what the business owners or family members are thinking. And it was used among a series of other artistic impulses. And the painter, Arnold Klemencic, was born actually in the same place as I was born, in the southern part of Austria, close to the Italian and Slovenian border. And this is a place of beautiful nature and also of many famous world-known artists. And growing up in this place really inspired me to get to know art better, to dive into nature, of course, and it's still a place where I get a lot of inspiration. So let me tell you a few things about myself. I'm based in Vienna currently, and I'm into social collaborative learning and learning experience design with a focus on peer exchange learning in communities of practice. And I focus on developing 21st century skills and using disruptive artistic impulses. I'm the founder of Talkshop 2CG, Poetry in Business, and Lab 21, which I was presenting at this very conference last year. So who are my learners? Well, my learners are very mixed. They range from students at universities to college pupils, to middle managers, team members, but also executives. So it's really mixed. I work with people in the corporate sector and in the public sector. And I observe a lot when I talk to my learners, when we work together. And they come with a lot of very mixed questions, like I did a data storytelling format very recently. And some of the participants, well, they said that their protagonists, well, they were suffering an identity crisis. So I thought, okay, these young people, well, in that case, Generation Y, they are really suffering from the current situation. They don't know how to go on, how to solve the problems, what to do with the environmental situation. And also in a green skills project that I did very recently, people asked, yeah, hey, what new behaviors and habits do we need to adopt to make this world a greener place? Other learners also say that our projects convince them to take action, to become more active and adopt more environmentally friendly habits. They find out that they need to be more self-critical. So all these questions, well, and these are only a few examples, they are basically about human capabilities, right? So it's all about the art of being human. And this is the focus of my learning design, so to say. And 21st century skills in my case really include communication skills, digital 21st century skills. You've learned a lot about this topic in our keynote speech today already. Cultural fluency, of course, flexibility, curiosity, creativity, imagination skills, well-being, empathy, visionary thinking, collaborative skills. So we need to train all these skills in order to be able to deal with the complex problem we are currently facing. And I'd like to introduce the 2ZG multi-method approach to you. So it's an approach that I have been developing for many years together with experts and facilitators and learners. And the 2ZG stands for Content and Context-Specific Generic Competency Coaching, and it aims to cultivate human capabilities in people and support learners to bring about change, and also, of course, to stay relevant. And the 2ZG methodology is anchored in communities of practice. So these are competency groups that share knowledge and aim to improve their practice because they share goals. They want to effect change in the real world. And the 2ZG method makes use of disruptive artistic impulses. I'm going to tell a little bit more about that when I show the practice examples. And already in my entry question, you've seen what an artistic impulse could be like, even for a team building seminar. My method has been implemented, I have implemented it on site, online, obviously, now, especially during the past 2 years, but also in blended formats before COVID-19, and more recently, hybrid, and the future definitely will be hybrid, as we also see in the conference now. So let me tell you a little bit about the 2ZG Poetry Machine, which is an application of the 2ZG method. And I call it a disruptor because the idea of the Poetry Machine is to use artistic impulses, so to get inspiration from poetry, puppetry, painting, literature, music, and dance, to inspire learners, to trigger emotions in learners, to make them grasp things that are hard to understand. So to help them leave their current mental models and come up with completely new associations. And the Poetry Machine always is linked to a practice, as it's anchored in the community of practice as such. So it's all about effecting change in real life. It considers the content. So content is always customized to the needs of learners. It also considers the context of learners. So the domain can vary a lot from engineering to marketing to business management to all kinds of domains. And the idea is, of course, to develop the 21st century skills with the help of the 2ZG Poetry Machine. And it is obviously technology enabled. And the measurement, it's important that we collect relevant data. And in that case, it's mainly qualitative data. So we do a lot of surveys, qualitative framework analysis, and these kind of measurement methods. And of course, the Poetry Machine also helps learners to define their values. So I promised you to give you some practice examples in this presentation. And basically, it's really all about improving our practice and effecting change in the real world. One practice example, a recent case that I designed and was implementing together with an artist from Russia who is currently based in Hamburg, was a hybrid future skills workshop for programmers in a technical school in Austria. And we set it up as a hybrid workshop. That means I was on site. I facilitated the group on site, and then we had online participants, just like in this conference now. And the topic for these programmers was they had to come up with a productive workspace. So a space where they could really work productively, and they should consider the hybrid format. The skills focus here was really, students had to use empathy, of course, imagination, collaborative team skills. They developed connected thinking skills, language skills, and 21st century digital skills, obviously. And they got, from the artists, they got philosophical impulses about architecture, about how space has an impact on our well-being, on how it has an impact on our productivity. And interestingly, the online cohort, so to say, so the participants who participated only from their PC or laptops, they programmed their productive workspace. And the program really focused very much on ergonomics and on how they would use the screen and how they would best work with their computer, so to say. Whereas the group on site, they worked with materials. So they, as you can see here, they really created their productive office of the future. And they came up with a lot of colorful ideas and thoughts. They also considered the atmosphere a lot more. They built a garden, as you can see here, and had plants in their office and all kinds of things that they needed to be productive. So that was really interesting to see how the two groups of participants came up with completely different results. And it was all about how they want to work productively in the future. As a next example, I like to share a blended 24-day creative deep dive. It was a creative challenge that people from the public and private sector, especially managers, actually they participated in this creative deep dive, which was implemented in collaboration with Künstlerhausvereinigung Wien. So this is Vienna Artists Association. And every day, participants who mainly participated online, they received a creative challenge. So a small task that they had to fulfill or could participate in on a daily basis. The results were shared with all the participants. And then we had also on-site workshops. So altogether it was a blended format. And on-site we made a creative journey together. We met in the museum, in the Künstlerhaus, and there developed artifacts like collage, drawings. And you can see here, the background image here is actually one artifact produced by one workshop participants. But it's not just for artists. I mean, this participant has obviously a creative talent, but people, all kinds of people from all kinds of businesses participated there. We had 15 participants, and they produced different kinds of artifacts, also small poems, small stories. Some were just happy with sharing their thoughts. So this deep dive actually focused on the imaginative skills, on communication skills, obviously, empathy, critical thinking skills. So we had different topics also. We dealt with different materials and their impact on the environment, on our well-being, on our daily life. And like this, participants had a full immersion, so to say, during these 24 days. Another practice example that I'd like to share with you was a 21st century skills training for engineers. And in that case, it was industrial engineering and management students at a University of Applied Sciences in Austria. And the purpose of this training was to really train communication skills, language skills, empathy, critical thinking skills, peer feedback skills, and also digital literacy skills and reflective skills. And students got the assignment to create a podcast episode, and the topic was gender equality. And it was, well, students came up with super interesting results. They produced their podcast episodes, and these young students aged between 20 and 30 years, they really took into account all the different aspects on gender, on the new future of gender, so to say. Some of them even quoted Simone de Beauvoir at age 20, and they found out about all this stuff on their own through effective teamwork and guidance, of course, by the facilitator. And I'd like to point out here that it's especially important to give a lot of guidance to learners so that they can really explore new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, and grow actually during such trainings. Then as a fourth case, I'd like to share a poetry and a Qigong a retreat format that we did for the first time this year. So we've been offering these sessions for 2 years, but we, for the first time, really staged a retreat in nature, in a beautiful spot in a natural surrounding. And the focus of poetry and Qigong, again, is to give people a chance to focus on their thinking skills, their creativity skills, to concentrate on their body, and really also find a way to de-stress, to calm down, to make space for creativity. Because everyone, when people arrived, I remember they were totally stressed out from work. They all are very busy. So the target group here were, again, managers, creative people. And they, after the 3 days, they were really kind of feeling free and so much better and open to new thoughts and inspiration. And what we do here is we mix actually the practice of Qigong, whereas you don't have to be an expert of Qigong, but the flow movements of Qigong, the flowing body movements with impulses from literature and poetry to, and nature, obviously, to make people, again, to help them free their mind and come up with completely new ideas that they then take back into their daily life and also job life. So these were some practice cases, as I promised, and I'd be very happy to answer questions if you have questions. So please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Christina, for explaining us about 2CG Poetry Machine. And everyone, please feel free to ask questions on the Q&A session, or you can as well unmute yourself. And Christina, you've managed to finish even before the time, so thank you.
I just checked. It was, I think, 2 minutes before, so...
You did, yeah, correct.
So should I stop sharing my screen, or how does this work now?
Yes, feel free to stop sharing the screen. If there's no questions related to the presentation itself, I think it's okay. All right, I'm seeing that on the chat, Hiko Amiltic, if I'm pronouncing correctly, saying that she's grateful for your presentation. And yeah.
I see one question here. Which forms of digital interaction did you find most rewarding? Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I have to say, they all have their advantages and disadvantages. And the positive thing was probably that it works fully online also. So I have been working with people mostly fully live online with learners in the past 2 years. And it actually works really well. I mean, what I couldn't even say, I mean, there is advantages actually even to the live online format, because people can participate from all over the place. So there is people participating from different countries and they don't have to travel. So this is the positive thing. And I would say the live online format. So to really answer your question is maybe the most effective one, so that we can really interact live online. I hope that answered your question. So
Thank you. And we have another question from Audra, and she is also grateful, and she's wondering if there's anything you would do differently.
What do you mean? Anything I would do differently or anything I did differently? I'm not sure what you mean by the question. Could you elaborate a bit on it?
So yeah, Audra, it would be lovely if you can type here in the chat.
You mean what I do different online as opposed to on site, or I'm not sure what you're referring to. I cannot see anything in the chat. I don't know, maybe you help me.
Yeah, so there is 3 different chat box that you're seeing on stage, event, and private. And if you type on event, there is a last question.
Okay, I see it. Is there anything you would do differently? If you, actually, I'm learning all the time, and I'm doing it all the time. So I think it's really about just doing it, trying things out. Yeah, I'm thinking about your question. Would I change anything? I think it's the dynamics is always different with each group of learners, because needs of learners are always different. And so it's different automatically all the time anyway. When it comes to designing the sessions, I think it's been quite successful. And as I'm working with different artists, we create new formats all the time. So I don't think anything was such a failure that we would have to do it differently, actually. So no, I couldn't really say what.
So that's great. Then it means that you are pretty satisfied with the outcomes that you had during those experiences. Then that's lovely.
Actually, yeah.
That's lovely. And we do. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to type here.
Would you say that being adaptive? Yeah, definitely. Being adaptive is key, and it's part of the 21st century skills that we need to train. And it's also key when it comes to designing the learning experience and when it comes to actually working with the people. And what I experience a lot is that we have to adapt on site or live online in the moment, so to say. When you see that learners need more guidance, then you need to quickly adapt. Or when you see that, I think this is part of the tools that you need to have as a facilitator or a trainer, that you are able to adapt. And of course, it's again different if you work on site, live online, or hybrid. So there is all these aspects that we need to consider. Yeah, thank you for the question. Okay, so I guess that's a technical question coming here.
Yes, correct.
Did the learner struggle with anything specific, or was it fairly smooth? Yeah, the learner. So thanks, Audra, for asking that question. I think the main thing that learners are struggling with is the courage to just be creative, or to a lot of learners fear that they might do something wrong, that they might not fulfill the task correctly. So, for example, like in the beginning, when I asked you, what does the woman in the painting tell you? Some people would just hesitate to get going because they are afraid of making mistakes. So I think this is probably a bit of a struggle that we need to overcome. So thanks, Audra, for asking that question. It's a very good question, actually.
Okay, thank you so much, Christina, one more time. And if there is no more questions, then I think we can wrap up the session.
Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.